Section 2. Know the basic anatomy and associated terminology of the dog and cat. Unit VCS 05. The maintenance of life depends on energy. The digestive tract aids said energy extraction. Excretion occurs to eliminate waste and unusable materials that the body can't take on board. Digestive processes take place, and the digestive system is made up of many parts. So what parts of the digestive system are there? We have the oral cavity, commonly known as the mouth, and that is made up of the lips, tongue and teeth. The pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, which is made up of the duodenum, jejunum and ileum, the large intestine, which is made up of the cecum, colon, rectum and anus. And then we also have several associated accessory glands who produce secretions to aid effective digestion. They are the salivary glands, the pancreas, the liver and the gallbladder. You do have an associated research task related to the accessory glands for you to detail what their functions are and produce a document for your veterinary educationalist to mark. So just first of all, to provide you with an overview of the processes and the appropriate terminology that we should be using. So the initial role of taking food into the mouth and then onwards into the body we call ingestion. The breaking down of food into chemical units occurring in both the stomach and the small intestine is termed digestion. Chemical units passing into the blood and carried to the liver we term absorption. Conversion of chemical units into energy to then be utilised by the body is termed metabolism, and that mainly occurs in the liver. And the removal of any waste or indigestible material is termed excretion. So the oral cavity, this is where food enters. We term this as the external opening to the digestive cavity, and we can also refer to it as the buccal cavity. It has three very important structures with important functions. We use the tongue for picking up food, and the correct term for that is prehension. The teeth are used for chewing, and we term this mastication. And the salivary glands are utilised to lubricate food and aid in swallowing. The lips. The mouth entrance is closed by the lips, made up of muscle covered in skin. We have within the upper lip a vertical split or division known as the philtrum. The oral cavity itself is lined by a layer of mucous membrane, and this is reflected onto the jawbones, and we term these as gums. This mucous membrane also covers the hard palate and extends over a flap of soft tissue at the back of the cavity known as the soft palate. The tongue. The tongue lies on the floor of the oral cavity and it's made up of striated muscle fibres. It makes delicate movements. The tongue is used for prehension and for manipulation of food, but also allows for fluid intake and grooming. In the dog, the tongue is the main method of thermoregulation. They utilise it when panting. And in cats it is covered in mucous membrane, arranged in backward pointing papillae, as you can see in the image provided, and that gives it a really rough surface. We can also term these as barbs for grooming. However, the downside to this is that they then swallow the fur, and that then causes fur balls. The salivary glands. So much of the oral cavity anatomy contains salivary glands within the cheeks, the tongue, the lips, esophagus, soft palate and pharynx. Most salivary activity occurs in the following: the zygomatic glands, the parotid glands, the mandibular glands and the sublingual glands, and these are depicted to you on the image to the left. We also have some minor salivary glands. These include the labial, the lingual, the buccal and the palatine. The saliva provides lubrication, thermoregulation, and also helps to cleanse debris from the teeth. The teeth. The hard and sturdy structures embedded in the jaws. Each jaw forms what we term a dental arch, and the teeth pierce through the gums to sit in the tooth socket, which we call the alveoli. The membrane covering of the gums is called the gingival or periodontal membrane. The tooth anatomy. So all teeth have a basic structure. Please, within your unit on OneFile, can you find task N and complete this for your veterinary educationist to mark. Use your textbooks to aid you and also allow for you to be able to label your image appropriately. It might be that you want to draw this out by hand instead and upload it in that way, or you might want to be clever with using pictures and then label the images. Whatever way works best for yourself to show the basic tooth anatomy and label the relevant parts as per the task in the associated handout. So what is the function? In the carnivore, we have the adaptions to enable shearing and tearing the flesh off bones of prey. There are 4 types of teeth classified by their shape and position. The incisors are used for cutting and biting off pieces of food. The canines or the eye teeth are used to hold and tear at food and also are used to kill prey. The premolars or cheek teeth are used to crush and grind soft foods, and the molars, again termed as cheek teeth, are used to chew and grind hard foods. Again, please see associated handout and complete task O within it for your veterinary educationist to mark. We can furthermore break down the dentition or the teeth in relation to our animals, in relation to the forms of them. And we have 2 types. We have our deciduous and also our permanent teeth. The deciduous teeth are also termed as milk or temporary teeth. They're present in the jaw at birth and they erupt as the animal grows, much like their human counterparts. They're usually a smaller type of tooth and they're very white, and they should all fall out when the adult teeth begin to erupt. Sometimes, however, we will have teeth that remain, so we call these retained teeth, and it may be that these are removed at a later stage, for example at the time of neutering, because they can cause quite a hindrance if they are sitting alongside the permanent teeth. The permanent dentition. These are also termed as adult teeth. They're larger than the deciduous teeth. Wear and tear will occur and they should last the lifetime of the animal. However, owners will need to care for teeth appropriately, so it is vitally important to encourage toothbrushing from a very early age to encourage the teeth to be kept clean, removing residues and food debris to reduce the buildup of plaque and tartar. The following images are just provided as a comparative for you. We've got the dog and cat dentition, also rabbit dentition and horse dentition, just for you to see how different the teeth look in relation to our carnivores and our herbivores, but also in relation to our cats and dogs. It is something that over time you'll probably become very familiar with in relation to dentals taking place in your workplace. We should be recording when such a procedure is taking place the dentition of that animal. So do we have all dentition existing? Have we got teeth that are missing? And we should be clearly marking that. And if for any reason a tooth does need extracting, again we should be marking that and giving a reason as to why the tooth was extracted, so that we have a complete history of that animal's dentition. Each species has what we term as a characteristic dental formula. This is used to monitor the number of teeth lost over time, whether this is due to injury or age, for example. And again, this helps us when we are performing dental procedures to know what is normal and what isn't normal. Teeth are referred to by their initial letter, i.e. I for incisor. And we see how many of each type there are seen within the upper and lower jaw on one side of the head. So the following formula are relevant to the dentition of the cat and dog. I've provided them for both the permanent and deciduous, and this gives you the total number of teeth altogether that we should expect to find. Tooth eruption times. So in relation to deciduous and permanent, I've broken it down into canine and feline species for you. So for the canine species, incisors should erupt in relation to the deciduous dentition at 3 to 4 weeks, canines at 5 weeks, premolars at 4 to 8 weeks, and then molars are absent. Their permanent dentition, their incisors should erupt at 3.5 to 4 months, canines at 5 to 6 months, premolars first at 4 to 5 months, and then the remainder between 5 to 7, and molars 5 to 7 months of age. The deciduous to the feline species is that their entire dentition begins to erupt at 2 weeks and is generally completed by 4 weeks. There's quite a difference in relation to our feline and canine species. And their permanent should come in at about 12 weeks. So it is quite variable, however, it will start at around 12 weeks, but we should have, by the time that they are 6 months old, their full dentition present. Moving our way along the digestive system itself now, we reach the pharynx. And this is a short muscular tube that's lined with mucous membrane, and it acts as a crossover point between the respiratory and digestive systems. The epiglottis divides the nasopharynx and the oropharynx, as we've talked about in previous sessions. The pharynx contains the tonsils, and it also contains a passage called the eustachian tube, which connects to the middle ear and allows the tympanic membrane to adjust pressure on either side. So this helps in relation to an animal's balance. So through a process called deglutition, or swallowing, food is transferred from the oral cavity to the esophagus. I have provided an image to the left-hand side of the slide depicting the position of the pharynx, which is broken into the oro and nasal pharynx, and also the esophagus. So the esophagus itself transports food by what we term as peristalsis, and this is onwards from the pharynx, through the thorax and into the stomach. The average time for food to pass down the esophagus is 15 to 30 seconds. Its position is that it lies parallel and dorsal to the trachea. It enters the abdominal cavity at the esophageal hiatus of the diaphragm. It is lined with stratified squamous epithelium, and that function of that epithelium is to protect against damage by food, whilst also allowing for the esophagus to be able to expand. The esophagus then joins the stomach at the cardiac sphincter, and this allows food to enter. The image provided here to the left dictates you what is happening when peristalsis is occurring. Please also provide yourself with a definition or an explanation from a dictionary point of view, but the image should show you quite clearly what is actually taking place. So within the esophagus we have ring-like contractions, and we call this the movement of peristalsis, and the purpose of that is to sweep food along the GI tract, so you can see how it's pushing it downwards. Then further on in the digestive system we also have what we call segmentation taking place, and this is related to the chyme, and this is in relation to digestive juices within the intestines. So it's not as relevant to the esophagus, however it is another type of muscular contraction which helps in relation to the processes of digestion. The stomach. The stomach is quite a simple structure, and it has three main parts: the cardia, the fundus and the pylorus. We class the stomach as being monogastric. When empty, the stomach should lie under the ribs. We have thick stomach walls that are easily distended by food, and while full of food, the stomach may actually occupy up to a third of the abdomen. The functions of the stomach are to act as a reservoir for food, break food up and then mix it with gastric juices, and to start the process of digestion. The stomach may be referred to as a C-shaped sac-like organ, as you can see from the previous image on the previous slide. So cranially, we have food entering the stomach through the cardiac sphincter into the cardia region. We have inner and outer curvatures. The food then moves into the body, which is also known as the fundus, and this is the yellow and blue areas, as you can see on the previous image, but are all actually in one area. And this is where most of the secretory activity occurs from the goblet, chief and parietal cells. So the goblet cells secrete mucus, and that is in order to prevent autodigestion. We don't want for the stomach to actually be able to digest its body walls. So this is really important that it ensures that it's acting only on the food and not the body itself. The chief cells secrete pepsinogen, which forms pepsin. This is a catalytic enzyme for protein breakdown. The parietal cells secrete HCl, which creates the acidic pH for enzymes to work. And that's hydrochloric acid. The small intestine. Food leaving the pyloric sphincter of the stomach enters into the small intestine, and this is the main site for enzymatic digestion and subsequent absorption of food. It has three main components. We have the duodenum, which is short. It sits in a U shape with the pancreas, where bile is released via the common bile duct from the gallbladder. The duodenal walls contain Brunner's glands, which secrete succus enteriticus, which is basically a mixture of enzymes. The jejunum is the distal portion, and this is responsible for the absorption of water, electrolytes and digestive products. The ileum is quite indistinct from the jejunum, so they're hard to distinguish between the two parts. However, the ileum does join the large intestine at the ileoceliac junction, and here it joins the cecum. Intestinal enzymes and functions of them. We have maltase converting maltose to glucose. Sucrase converts sucrose to glucose and fructose. Lactase converts lactose to glucose and galactose. Enterokinase converts trypsinogen to trypsin. Aminopeptidase converts peptides to amino acids. And lipase converts fats to fatty acids and glycerol. So what we have is the basic makeup of food that is ingested being broken down and converted into smaller molecules, and thus this enables for them to be absorbed. The small intestine structure. All parts have a similar structure, and the layer of epithelium is folded into millions of folds called villi, or if we term them from a singular point of view, villus. The function of the said villi is to increase the surface area of the epithelium of the small intestine, and that in turn makes sure that we have the maximum efficiency when it comes to digestion and also absorption processes. From each epithelial cell there is a border of tiny microvilli that enable the formation of a brush border, again to increase the surface area. The villi. Within each villi, it consists of a network of blood capillaries. They convey small molecules, and these are transported to the liver, and this is done via the hepatic portal vein. A lymphatic capillary known as a lacteal. Each carries chyle, and this is a milky substance that is a result of fat digestion. The dictionary definition of the hepatic portal vein is that it is a portal vein carrying blood from the digestive organs and spleen to the liver, where the nutrients carried by the blood are altered by hepatocytes, so these are cells of the liver, before passing into the systemic circulation. So what is digestion? Food is ingested in the form of proteins, fats and carbohydrates. For the body to utilise it as a source of energy, it needs to be broken down into soluble molecules, so basically in a way that the body can use it. Then, this ensures that these molecules can be absorbed through the villi in the small intestine and onwards into the bloodstream. In mammals, this process takes place using chemicals that we know as enzymes. And enzymes are named after the material they are to act upon, i.e. lipase or lactone fats, which are correctly termed lipids. The large intestine. Found within the large intestine are goblet cells, which secrete mucus to lubricate the passage of fecal boluses with minimal damage. The cecum. The cecum is a short, blind-ending tube and it joins the ileum at the ileocecal junction. It does have very little function in the carnivore, but is very important for the hindgut fermenting herbivores, and this includes rabbits and horses, in order to break down cellulose in plant cell walls. So within our carnivores, our cats and our dogs, very little function. The colon itself. This is where we have the absorption of water, electrolytes and vitamins from the remaining indigestible food within the proximal colon. The distal colon stores and periodically expels feces into the rectum. The large intestine. The colon walls have crypts of libercune, which secrete intestinal juice to neutralise acid. These are throughout the small and large intestines. The rectum is the part of the colon that runs through the pelvic cavity into the anus. It's held closely to the dorsal aspect of the body wall by tissue and muscle. And the anus is the external opening of the digestive tract and contains two muscular aspects: an internal anal sphincter, which is a smooth muscle in a ring shape, and the external anal sphincter, which is an outer ring of striated muscle. Defecation. Fecal material is passed along the colon and rectum by peristalsis. As the faeces enter the pelvic cavity, the rectum is stretched, which stimulates voluntary straining. We then have relaxing of the sphincter, which is usually closed, thus the abdominal contractions will force the faeces out. What does faeces consist of? It consists of water and fibre, any dead and living bacteria, slough cells from the intestines, mucus, the pigmentation that actually gives faeces its colour, and also pheromone secretion from anal glands. I just needed to cover with you a small section on body fluids. I would like you to read into this further using your textbook or online resources and make some notes to be uploaded onto one file for your veterinary educationalist to mark. Body fluids are very important. We have both extracellular and intracellular. In relation to extracellular, this actually makes up around 1/3 of the body's total fluid. It bathes all the cells in the body, and from this fluid cells take up oxygen and nutrients and give off their waste products. We can further divide extracellular fluid into two compartments, one within the vessels called the circulating blood plasma, and one that surrounds all cells called the interstitial fluid. Our intracellular or ISF makes up the remaining 2/3 of the total body fluid. This is fluid found inside the cell.